The Mid-America Veterans Museum is a 501c3 nonprofit business. The museum would not exist without the donations of our generous community. Your donations ensure the museum continues to share and preserve the stories of our veterans. Would you like to be part of something special? To donate, visit mavm.org and click on Donate. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only. The primary purpose of the Operation Insight podcast is to educate. The views, information, or opinions expressed on the Operation Insight podcast are solely the views of the individuals or guests involved and by no means represent absolute facts. Operation Insight does not accept responsibility for their views or comments. The Operation Insight podcast may at times cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to suicide, abuse, violence, severe mental illness, sex, drugs, and alcohol addiction. You are advised to refrain from watching or listening to the Operation Insight podcast if you are likely to be offended or adversely impacted by any of these topics. Neither the company, host, director, or the guest shall at any time be liable for the content covered, causing offense, distress, or any other reaction. Welcome to the Operation Insight podcast from the Mid-America Veterans Museum with your host, Jason Galvin, and co-host, Sergeant Ethan Gross. Welcome back, family, and thank you for joining the podcast tonight. We have a special guest in our studio, Sergeant First Class Johnathon W. McDaris, U.S. Army, from 1999 to 2015. I have in studio also my co-host, Ethan Gross, Sergeant Ethan Gross. Go ahead, Ethan, and kick us off.
Roger that. Well, Sergeant to Sergeant First Class, thank you for being here. We've already talked a little bit before we hit record. Your story to me, John, is one of courage, one of valor, and one of dedication to service. So I'm really excited to get more into your story and into your life. We have your father's story in the museum, and we have your story. So let's start with the basics, though. Tell us about where you're from and tell us about how you grew up.
Yeah, where I'm from is very fluid. I'm an Army brat. I was born in Elmendorf Air Force Base, Alaska. My dad was stationed at Fort Richardson. West Point, Fort Riley, Fort Leonard Wood, Tulsa while my dad was in Korea. I'm all over, man. Fort Hood. Dad retired. Dad retired right before the Gulf War kicked off. Unbeknownst to him, the war was kicking off, which he always hated not knowing because, Dad was staying in. Something him and I talked about a lot.
What was your dad's age at that point when he retired?
Oh, man. My dad was probably mid-30s.
Okay.
He joined at 17 as well.
He had some fight left in him.
Yeah. Yeah, Dad definitely had some fight left in him.
So born at Elmendorf.
Born in Elmendorf. But once Dad retired, I pretty much, claimed Oklahoma, man. that's, my dad was from Jinx, Oklahoma. My mom was from Tulsa, and when they retired, because, mom was in with Dad ever since Vietnam. So, when they retired, they went back home. That's what they knew.
Tell us a little bit more about your dad.
Well, my dad's the son of a World War II veteran, the grandson of a World War I veteran. And, as soon as my dad, got old enough, he went to my gramps and was like, I'm doing this, dude. And of course, my grandpa, same stuff my dad put me through. Are you sure? Is this really what you want to do, man? And eventually gave in, and my dad joined the Army as a combat engineer. Went to Germany, And then as soon as he was old enough, he volunteered for service in Vietnam. And that's right where he went to, was Vietnam. So
how did he and your mom meet?
So my dad was home from his first tour in Vietnam. My uncle was dating one of my mom's friends. And my mom and dad kind of knew of each other, but they didn't know each other, sure. Right? Yeah. And so they did the old double date thing. And that was history, man. They were together for 49 years before Dad passed away.
Wow.
What
a testament to their love and dedication to each other.
Yeah.
Tell us about your siblings.
So I have one older, my oldest brother rather, Parrish. He joined the Army as well. He's 11 Charlie Mortarman. He did a couple of years, got injured and got out. My middle brother Tim, he went to college. He was a sports player. He was a stud soccer player. Went that way. And then of course there's this guy, Chris. We call him Chris White. I mean, he's not like he as far as blood goes, he's not my brother.
Sure.
But I mean, I've known Chris for over 30 years now. I mean, I call him my brother. I introduce him as my brother. I mean, and my parents always saw him as one of their own, and people ask me, I'm like, I got 3 older brothers. I'm the youngest of 4. Because I mean, that's really how it was. I fought with Chris like he was my brother. I learned from Chris like he is my brother. Chris treated me like his little brother. So
is this one of those bonds that you form with other kids on the installation or the Army post?
No. Chris is very far detached from the military, man. Chris is another neighborhood kid who played soccer from Tulsa, Oklahoma, man.
Gotcha.
We just became, him and my brothers became friends, and then, Chris and I, we've just through the years, man, him and I have, I would say, him and I have grown the closest.
Wow.
Him and I have been through some stuff in our lives, and through that stuff, we found a brotherhood, a bond, and resilience, and I would say a need for each other.
Sure.
Yeah. A need for each other, yeah. Without a doubt.
Yep.
Talk about a bond of fraternity.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, the only other people I know closer to me in my life would be those guys that I was in Iraq with.
Sure. Well, tell us about you entering into the service.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah. So I was, man, I went to a career fair at my high school, Tulsa Union High School. I went to a career fair, and I don't know why I was even there. I think I was there because of a girl, probably, man, to be honest with you. I saw this cool guy in a uniform, and I was like, heck yeah, that's me right there, dude. So I went up to him, and I introduced myself. I was like, yeah, let's do this, man. He was like, yeah, right on. He was a recruiter. He gave me the recruiter, spiel and stuff like that. He said, yeah, man, well, I'm kicking indoors and all this other stuff. I was like, oh, yes. And he got my contact information like any good recruiter would have done. I know that from my time in recruiting. Got my contact information, reached out to me a couple days later, and next thing I know, he's coming to my house and sitting down with Mom and Dad, and this dude walks in the house. He's like, hey, how's it going, man? I'm like, hey, how you doing, Sergeant? He's like, yeah, I'm good, and this is my mom. My mom's like, hey, how are you? And I'm like, this is my dad. My dad's like, how's it going, Sergeant? The guy's like, huh? And he looks at the wall. He's like, huh? Like total, like, where am I? Like, what did I just walk into? Because my dad's got all his Army stuff, and
sure, yeah.
He's like, well, I just walked into this guy's house, and like, this dude's like, this dude's got he's got the T-shirt,
yeah,
and whatnot. We sat down at the table, and he did his whole spiel about what they can offer me and everything like that, And man, I had the blinders up. I wanted to be a soldier,
He could have said anything at that point.
Yeah. He could. Yeah, he could. I mean, yeah, I wanted to be a soldier.
Did he? Do you think he augmented his spiel at all once he realized your dad?
That's what I was going to ask.
100%, man.
Okay,
100%. Yeah. Oh yeah. And my dad kept telling him to relax. He was like, "Dude, relax, man." It's like, dude, I've been retired, over a decade, bro. It's cool, man. Like, don't you guys like Roger First Sergeant?
The kicking indoors talk was gone, I'm guessing.
It was gone. It was gone, man. Yeah. It was gone. And then he started talking about like jobs he can I can do and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, cool, man, right on, man. It's like, you gotta take the ASVAB, and I'm like, what VAB? It's like the ASVAB, and I'm like, okay, cool, I'll do it, And Dad's looking at me, he's like, giving me one of these looks like, are you sure about this, bro? And so I went and took the ASVAB, and I came back. I got an 87 on the ASVAB, dude. I was a genius, and I didn't even know it. Because I did good in school, but I was not one of those kids that was like, let me make a straight A in every single class. I was like, dude, let me get by. Let me make some good grades. My brothers, they did good, but I was going to be smarter than my brothers because I watched them be stupid. So I got to be smarter than them, right? So I did pretty good in the ASVAB. He comes back at the house. He's like, yeah, you can do this, that, or whatever. I'm like, dude, I want to be a combat engineer. He's like, you want to be a what? I was like, I want to be a combat engineer, dude. It's like, if my dad can do this job, I can do this job. He's like, okay, let me see if there's a slot open for you. I'm like, cool, man, right on. Cool, let's check it out. So he does his thing on, and he's like, yeah, we got a position for you. I was like, cool, man, when do I sign? He's like, well, it's not that easy, dude. You gotta have your mom and dad sign off on you because you're 17. I was like, okay, too easy. Hey guys, you gotta sign right here, And my mom's like, okay, yeah, and Dad's like, I'm not doing it. I'm like, what? What do you mean you're not? What do you mean you're not doing it, dude? He's like, I don't know about this, man. We got to talk about this, And I'm like, looking him down, I'm like, are you serious right now, dude? Look, you may be able to beat me up, but I'll throw it right now, And my mom looks at my dad. He's like, look, he turns 18 in 6 months. Either we can do it or he's going to do it when he turns 18.
Sure.
And my dad was like,
you got a point.
Well, I guess I'll sign right there. And so he signed, man. And I went down to MEPS. I joined the Oklahoma Army National Guard as a combat engineer on 29 January 1999.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
Was the process different for your older brother, or was it similar with the recruiting thing?
You know what, man? I was so detached from that whole process, because I was
in your own world or something.
Yeah. I was just like, cool, dude. You're joining the Army. That's awesome, bro. Like, yeah, that's what McDaris men do, dude. I'm glad you're doing this, man. Way to be a man, But outside of that, I was just like,
is that why you had what sounds like almost like a cavalier attitude about joining, because you thought that it had been so easy for your brother, or it had appeared so? Had you talked to your parents about this before going to the recruiter?
Not really, man. Not really. I mean, it was a normal. The military was a normal thing in our household. Sure. Like I said, my grandpa. Well, even my mom's side. My uncle was a naval officer. My other uncle, he was a Navy Seabee. My dad was in the Army. My grandfather was in the Army. Both my grandfathers were in World War II. Like, this was a normal thing.
Sure.
Like the military talk and the military culture, the videos, the movies. Like, this was normal in our household growing up, man.
Why did your dad resist so much with you? Was it for show, or he really felt that?
I think because Dad knew I was going to be the one. I think Dad knew
you were going to make it a career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was not my intentions. I'm telling you that right now. That was not my intentions. Making the Army a career was not why I went in, with the premonition I was going to do what McDaris men do and serve my country.
Sure.
And then I was going to get out. Yeah. I was going to go to college at the University of Oklahoma. I was going to be a kindergarten teacher.
You had it all planned out.
I had it all planned out.
Your dad knew better.
Dad, yeah. Mom and Dad knew better. They both knew better.
Something I wanted to ask about, we kind of passed over. I want to get back to it. Your mom was fairly involved as a military spouse. Can you tell us more about that?
Oh, yeah, dude. My mom, man. And it's crazy because I didn't realize how awesome my mom was until I joined the Army and I started seeing things happening on the other side, on the spouse's side, especially like building up to deployment, during deployment and stuff like that, you know. I was like, wow, this is what mom did? Like, dude, mom's a freaking star, dude. Like, I mean, all we had to do was get shot at and worry about not getting hit. Like, she was doing the she was on the backside doing the stuff, you know? Yeah. And a lot of times people talk about veterans, man, like, you know, oh, dude, you got shot at, you got blown up. Yeah, I did, man. It sucked, whatever. But, like, I couldn't imagine for one moment being a spouse back here going every single day, like going to the store and getting groceries, not knowing if you're at the store, you're going to go home and some guy's going to be sitting there waiting for you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Good point.
The secondary trauma that spouses endure. Yeah, I think that's very commonly forgotten about or not even known.
Yeah, man. We talk about the heroes on the battlefield, dude. I'll tell you right now, man. My wife, she's gotten me through a lot of stuff here on the other side.
That's awesome to hear.
Yeah, very awesome.
You got to have a partner that's going to be with you,
step
by step.
Yeah.
So tell us about you joined Oklahoma National Guard, but then eventually you went active. Tell us about that transition.
So yeah, man, I was in the Oklahoma Army National Guard. I was working as a recruiter assistant. It was cool. Like, I got to go to the schools. I got to hang out with kids my own age, recruit kids my own age and stuff like that. It was fun. It was cool. I mean, I even recruited a couple of my buddies to join the National Guard who actually ended up going to Iraq, you know, and whatnot, who are veterans now, you know, in that sense. So it was cool, but, you know, I hung out a lot with Sergeant First Class Van Buren, and he was a Gulf War veteran. He was an infantry guy. And man, he would tell me stories, stuff like that about being on active duty and what it was like and stuff, you know. And this dude, man, he had it triple stacked, man. I mean, he had all that stuff that a young, impressionable, you know, gun-ho dude is looking at going, oh my gosh, dude, this guy's like, this guy, I mean, you know, so I was like, cool, man. So I remember I went to Oklahoma City. I drove a recruit down to Oklahoma City to the MEPS. I was driving back, and I was just like, you know what, man? I want more out of my Army career than this. I want to do more in the Army than what I'm doing now. Not that what I was doing wasn't honorable. It wasn't doing my part, because it was, but I wanted more out of it than that. And so the next day, I went to our station commander, Sergeant Myers, and I spoke with him and Sergeant Van Buren. I was like, guys, I want to go active duty Army. They're like, you want to do what? I was like, I want to go active duty Army. And they're like, okay, it's a process. And I was like, okay, well, let's start it. You know, and so yeah, man, we started the process, and I went to Oklahoma City to the headquarters there for the 45th Infantry Division, because that's the Oklahoma National Guard, and I spoke with I think it was a 2-star there. I spoke with, and
talk about a process. You had to talk to a 2-star.
Yeah, right off the bat, man, right to the top,
bro. I was an E3. yeah. He's like, hey, how's it going? I'm like, how's it going, sir? You know, he's like, what do you want to do? I was like, I want to go active duty. He's like, sure you want to do this? I'm like, yeah, you know. But yeah, we got through it and whatnot. And he's like, yeah, I think you're gonna be a great candidate, man. Let's go ahead and stamp off, you know, do this, whatever. And by the time I went to the Army recruiting office there in Tulsa, the one over by Memorial, or by Woodland Hills Mall, the same office my brother joined the Army out of, ironically. And I remember, man, I walked in that office. I walked in there with my papers, and I walked in, and that first recruiter, and I learned this, that being a recruiter, that first desk right there is the brand new guy. They put him up front to be like, look, dude, Baptism under fire, baby.
Yep.
So I walk in, I set that paper down. He's like, "Hey, how's it going?" I was like, "Hey, how's it doing, man? I'm here to join the active duty Army." He's like, "Okay, cool, right on." I was like, "I'm prior service, Army National Guard. Already been to basic, already been to AIT, man. I want to join the active duty Army." He's like, "Cool, right on. Let's sit down. Let's talk about it." And I was like, "Yeah, dude. I want to be infantry. Here's my stuff, man. Like, let's go, dude." He's like, "Well, let me tell you about the Army." And I'm like, "What?"
We're past that point.
I'm like, "Dude, what? I've already done this, bro."
He had to get that spiel off. You know, he'd been practicing.
Oh yeah. He wanted to give.
He's
it
like,
to
"Wait
me.
a second, let me do this."
And I don't remember the guy's name, but he walks up there. He's like, "Hey, what's up, dude?" I'm like, "What's going on, Sergeant?" He's like, "So you want to join, man? You got your paperwork?" It's like, "Yeah, dude, right here, man." And he's like, "Cool. What do you want to do?" I was like, "I want to be infantry." He's like, "Oh, what kind of infantry you want to be?" I was like, "I don't know, dude. The kind that shoots guns and jumps out of planes and helicopters, dude." He's like, "No." You just see it was like a dog salivating. He's like, "Yes."
A little pin with a check mark.
Oh yeah. He was like, "I got this dude right here." And so I'm like, "Cool, man, right on." But that young staff sergeant, he was Sergeant Roberts was his name, and that actually goes full circle. That name Roberts goes full circle. So yeah, he brings me in. He prints out all this paperwork. I'm signing stuff or whatever you do. And he's like, "Okay, man, you're going to be 11 Hotel." I was like, "All right, cool, man. What's 11 Hotel?" He's like, "It's like, you're an anti-armed recruitment." I was like, "Cool, man. What does that do?" He's like, "Well, tow missiles, 50 cals, Mark 19s, man." He goes, "Basically, dude, you're gonna be the guy on the ground shooting after tanks and stuff like that." And I was like, "The what? Who? What?" It's like, "Yeah." It's like, "Cool, man." It's like, "Yeah, you signed right there. You already took it." And I was like, "I did. I did."
Were you wanting to bring out your ASVAB score at that point? Hey,
No.
I got 87.
No, dude, no, because my brother was infantry, and mind you, I did the combat engineer because Dad did, right? And I was like, if that joker can do that, I can do that. And then I was like, if my loser brother, he's not a loser, but I was like, if that loser can do infantry, I can do infantry too, man. So I joined the infantry, right? And it was cool. It was cool, man. And then I reported to Fort Benning, Georgia, because infantry training, it's OSUT, man. Sure. So whatever. And I showed up there. I got to the 30th AG, and they're like, "Hey, man, let me see your paperwork." We're getting off the bus. We're getting off the bus there from the Atlanta airport. We're getting off the bus, and drill sergeant's like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "I already done this, man. I've already."
So you had to redo basic,
bro. Yeah. Well,
oh my gosh.
Here's the deal. So I'm like, I've already got this T-shirt, man. I ain't got to do all this stuff, right? Because that's what the recruiter told me, right? And so he's yelling in my face. I'm like, "Okay, all right, cool." I got off the bus. He's like, "Blah blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Oh man." So we get inside. Dude, it's like 2:00 in the morning, man. And I'm like, "Dude, I just want to go to sleep, bro. Like, I'm tired. I'm tired." He's like, "Anybody here prior service?" And I was like, "Oh, it's my time to shine, baby." I raised my hand. He's like,
about to make an example out of you.
"Oh yeah, buddy. Oh yeah." He pulls me right up front. He's like, "This is what you call a loser." He tried it once. He didn't think he liked it. Oh, no, he just goes his whole spiel, and I'm like, "No, that's not what happened." No, I'm like, that's not what happened.
Of course, you can't say anything.
Of course I can't say anything, man. And so, I go through all the thing or whatever, and then they pull me over to where the prior service barracks are and stuff like that. But dude, let me backtrack here, okay? Let me go back to basic combat training in June of 1999.
The first iteration.
Yes, the first iteration. Now, I show up, go through AG, get all my stuff and stuff like that. Pickup day comes. I get picked up on the cattle cars. We get taken to our training area, right? Our training barracks. We're running underneath there, and they're, whatever. And then, if your name's this, you go here, whatever. And I'm like, "Okay, cool. I go over here, right?" And they're like, "Get upstairs." And I'm like, I'm getting upstairs. I'm 17 years old. I'm young. I'm motivated, right? Motivated. Yeah. So I get upstairs, right? And I'm put all my stuff in my bunk. I'm sitting there, right? Drill sergeant comes up there. Drill sergeant, all of us comes up there. He's yelling everybody's name. He's like, He just yells people's names. He goes, McDaris. And I was like, yeah, drill sergeant. You know, it says it again. He's like, McDaris. I'm like,
I'm right here.
Did I not yell loud enough? Like, yeah, drill sergeant. It's like, you get your blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, no, I did something bad. So I go running up there or whatever, you know, and I stand there, you know, parade rest like they taught you and stuff like that. I'm like, Private McDaris. He's like, where's your battle buddy?
Oh, gosh.
I'm like, who is my battle buddy? You know? And so I go running back or whatever, and I'm like, I look over, and Scott King is sitting there. Scott King, man. Scott King. That's a full circle moment, too. Scott King looks at me, and I'm like, you're it, dude. He's like, he's just looking at me like, you know, I got cussed out by his eyes. And so we go running up there, and he's like, you sit right here, Private. And I was like, I'm not going to sit. I'm going to stand. So I stood there at parade rest, man. He walks out the door, bay doors. And you've been to basic, man. You know those bay doors are. Walks out the bay doors. The bay doors open that way, dude. 2 seconds later, the bay doors open this way. The biggest man I've ever seen in my entire life, Drill Sergeant Ruffin. I'm not just saying this because it's basic training. I'm 17. Nope, this is the biggest man I've ever seen in 44 years on this earth. Okay? He comes through those doors, and he's like, where in the mother, you know, is McDaris? And I'm like, oh. You know, like, here, Drill Sergeant. You know, and he's like,
you had just found your battle buddy. You thought you were golden.
Yeah. I thought it was over with, man. Yeah. I thought it was over with. And he proceeds to come up in my face, and he's like, was your daddy in the Army? I'm like, yes, he was. Yes, he was, Drill Sergeant. He's, where was he ever at Fort Laramie? It's like, yes, he was, Drill Sergeant. Was he a drill sergeant? Yes, he was, Drill Sergeant. It's like, what unit? I was like, Echo 4-4. He's like, they both just look at each other and start laughing. I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? What did I just do? You know, and they're like, Drill Sergeant Ruffin looks at me and goes, Private, your daddy was the meanest man I've ever met in my life. And I said, oh no. You know, I mean, I felt like the inner body, like my bones were shaking. You know, I mean, I just sunk into mush, man. And whatever, he's like, welcome to basic training. I'm like, Roger, Drill Sergeant. So we go running back or whatever, man. And they taught us how to like fold our make our bed, how to fold our socks, all that other stuff, right? And
dress right dress.
Yeah, man. Yeah, they taught us all that stuff. So it's after dinner chow, so we're there doing all that stuff, right? Setting up how they told us how to do it. And you know, there's Private McDaris. I'm like, okay, here we go. So I got running up to Drill Sergeant's door or whatever, you know, to the. I ran to the ready line because I learned what the ready line was because Private Hardin, that's a funny story. Private Hardin had crossed the ready line and we saw what happened to him and I was like, not doing that. So we went up there where they called me in their office. So I'm like, okay, all right. And they're like, close the door, Private. I'm like, close the door. They're like, call your dad. I'm like, do what? And they're like, call your dad. So I called Dad, and I'm like, hey, Dad, what's up, man? He's like, hey, dude, how are you, man? How's it going? What? Wait, why are you calling me?
How are you calling me?
Yeah, he's like, what's going on? Because I'd already made that phone call.
Yeah.
You know the phone call. I already made the phone call. Mom, Dad, I'm here. I'm safe. Love you. Bye.
Yeah.
You know, it was over with. I'll see you in a couple weeks, you know. Well, I called him again. He's like, wait, well, why are you making that phone call? I'm like, well, Dad, I met some of your friends. He's like, you what? I was like, yes, 2 of my drill sergeants know you, Dad. And he's like, what? You did what? I was like, yes. And by the time drill sergeant all, hey, how's it going, drill sergeant? Like, hey, how's it going, drill sergeant? What are you up to, man? He's like, not much, man. A couple Echo 4-4 Eagles here. Dad was like, you hear like this pause. And my dad had this evil laugh. Like when he did this laugh, you knew something was about to happen. You knew something was about to happen. And he just started. I was like, oh my gosh, dude. They're looking at me and they're smiling. And I'm like, yeah, I know what's happening now. You know,
they're plotting the smoke.
Oh yeah, dude. Oh yeah. Every range we went to, you know, there's that guy that the demonstrator who messes everything up. Yeah, that you're looking at him. You're looking at him. Yeah, man. Yeah. But it was cool though, because when I graduated basic training, Dad shows up and whatnot. You know, by that time, First Sergeant and the company commander knew who my father was, and so you know he got a seat of honor and stuff like that. You know, whatever, and it was cool watching the way that these guys interacted with my father. Because I remembered it as a child, but I didn't understand it as a child. Now I'd been through it, so I understood it. And I saw that level of respect that was given to him for what he had done and what he had been through and stuff like that. And at that point in time, I had grasped what I had thought I had grasped, what it meant to have a Bronze Star with Valor, to have 2 Purple Hearts. You know, I thought I understood what that meant at that point, so I was like, this is cool, man. But that was later in life where, you know, once the war kicked off, that things started happening, I came back and I was like, now I understand what it means to have a Bronze Star with a V device, and I know what it means to be awarded a Purple Heart. And that's when Dad's already majestic persona, because, you know, my dad's my hero, man. My dad is my hero. That's when his majestic presence, persona, whatever, took on a whole new level, you know. I mean, and as far as I'm concerned, man, Jesus is the only other man that's walked this earth that's greater than my father, you know.
That's a question I was going to ask, that dichotomy of biological dad, you know, father, versus war hero. How do you make that distinction, or is there a distinction? Is it one person or is it 2 people?
Man, it's for me, man, it's all one and the same. I grew up playing sports, and these other parents would be out, they'd be in their car watching us play sports and in torrential downpours and stuff like that. Not my old man. My dad stood out there because if I was going to face it, he was going to face it. You know, and it made sense. Like, people say, dude, your dad's crazy, man. I'm like, yeah, my dad's a nut, dude. You know, but then, like, I get it. Yeah, I get it. You know, if his kids were going to do it, he's going to do it. Just like if your soldiers are going to do it, you're going to do it.
I think that's the ideal for anyone who joins the service. It sounds like your dad was a perfect testament of that. When you become a soldier, when you become a Marine, sailor, airman, whatever it is, that never leaves you.
It doesn't, man. It doesn't. I've been retired 10 years now, man. I can still recite every word to the Infantryman's Creed. Why?
It's baked in.
Yeah. It is, man. Yeah. It is. At first, I learned it because I wanted to eat.
Yeah.
It was out of necessity.
Yeah. It was out of necessity to eat. And then it developed into I embody that now.
Sure. Yeah.
I watch guys embody that. Every word of that creed, I watch guys embody. So who am I to forget it?
I think that's part of the reason.
Yeah.
One of many reasons why our fighting force is the most elite fighting force
Absolutely.
in the entire universe.
Great point, Ethan.
Well, John, so take us back to OSIT. So you said 11 Charlie, was that right?
No, my brother was 11 Charlie. Okay, I'm 11 Hotel.
11 Hotel.
Yeah, I'm anti-armor.
So tell us about that training.
Yeah, man. So I showed up or whatever. They're like, yeah, we're gonna get you started. You know, right when the OSIT cycle starts and stuff like that. I'm like, cool, right on, man. Awesome, thanks, bro. Thanks, Sergeant. Well, that didn't happen, man. That didn't happen. I started like week 5. Yeah. I started like week 5. So I show up, Delta 119, and Joe Sergeant Cambry was there, and he's like, "Why are you here?" I was like, "I don't know, Sergeant. I don't know." He's like, "It's Drill Sergeant." It's like, "Roger, Drill Sergeant. I don't know why I'm here." And he's like, "You've already done all this stuff." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay, cool. Look, just go along, play along. You've been through this, man. Just do what you have to do, or whatever." He's like, "Look, you know, on the weekends, man, you know, you can have a pass. Like, you can go to the PX and stuff like that. You know, don't be bringing stuff back to my privates." I was like, okay, I won't do that.
Do they still have you in the prior service barracks?
No, man.
You had to join.
Dude, I'm a Delta 119, bro. I got a bunk in the bay. Bro, I got a bunk in the bay down by the bathrooms. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, dude, I bumped a dude, man. It was I deboed a guy out of his bunk. I was like, hey, you're done. He was like, what? I'm like, you're leaving. Get out of my bed, bro. He's like, well, you can't do that. I'm like, I'm prior to service. Tell me I can't again. You know? So yeah, man, it started out, you know, I went through that or whatever, you know, man. And September 11th happened while I was in training. And man, that was a day.
What do you remember about that day?
Yeah, take us through it.
I was on the M249 range there at Fort Benning. I was a third in line to fire. I was standing there. They instantly called the range dead. Cold. Yeah, man. And drill sergeants, you know, get in the stands, privates, get in stands. You know, we all turn around, we all run in the stands.
Like there's an immediate threat on your location almost.
Yeah. So, you know, and no one really knew. No one knew at all what was going on. And I just remember our senior drill. I can't remember his name, but he was like, "Hey, privates, who here is from New York or New Jersey?" You know, privates raise their hands, stuff like that. He's like, "All right, privates, get out of the bleachers, go over there to that staging area." You know, and they all got up and got over there and stuff like that. And we're all sitting, you know, us, you know, guys are sitting there. I'm like, I'm from Oklahoma. I ain't got to worry about nothing. You know, well, thing was, man, is they you know, they told us,
sure,
America has been attacked. We are now a country at war. All of you will be going to war. We're like,
was that a thought that excited you or did it frighten you?
I didn't know how to feel, man.
Yeah.
All I knew that it wasn't in my plans. It wasn't a part of my plan.
Were you still on that trajectory of the preschool teacher thing?
Yeah. And I was on that trajectory until 2003, man. And then you know, once we deployed, well, I say 2003, man. I don't really mean that. Once I got to Fort Campbell, after I graduated there at Fort Benning, I got orders for Campbell.
101st.
Yeah, man. My brother was the 101st guy. So I was like, sweet, man, right on, man. Maybe I'll be 2nd Brigade like my brother. I'll be a strike guy. Like, that's cool, man. No, when I got to Fort Campbell, I was put in 1st Brigade, Bastogne Brigade. And then I was put in Dog Company of 3rd Battalion, 327th Infantry. Battle Force, man. And got there, and they're like, you know, I don't care if you're prior service. You're like a private to me. And I was like, okay, all right, okay, you know, and yeah, man, yeah. Although I had a little bit of rank, sure. Dude, I was a brand new Joe, you know, and I had to,
in their eyes,
yeah, and I had to earn it. I had to earn it all, and I'm so thankful for that, because, dude, I had thought that I'd been broken down and rebuilt in basic training. No, bro. No, once I got to the 101st, no, that's when it really started. You know, I mean, that's, you know, 5 Mile Monday. Yeah. You know, we had our 5 mile run every Monday morning. I'm like, what is this? You know, and then we had our woods runs on Fridays, man. Storm Powers would take us through the woods in the back 40, dude. We'd be in a dead sprint running through these woods, you know, and he's like, you got to train how you fight, man. You know, you can't walk through these woods when you're getting shot at. You know, it's like, what? You know, and then we'd have those, you know, we'd put a ruck on, you know, you'd carry the 50 or the Mark 19 or the tow, you know, you'd break it down and stuff like that. You know, we do these 12-mile road marches, man. It was serious stuff, man. And yes, basic training prepared me for it, but dude, it was different, man. When I got to Fort Campbell, it was different. It was different, man.
You think it was always like that, or do you think that it was enhanced because of the times we were in 9/11 and such?
You know what? My platoon, dude, I hit the jackpot. My platoon Sergeant Powers, well, he was a Mogadishu veteran. Wow. So he'd been there. He's got that T-shirt, man. You know, this was a guy who already had a CIB. This, you know, yeah. This is a real dude, like, you know. And when I met him, I was like, oh my gosh, dude. Like, look at this guy, you know, because he was triple stacked. I mean, he was a stud. Audie Murphy, all kinds of stuff, man. So, you know, the Sergeant Powers could have told me the sky was purple, and I wouldn't have questioned it. I'd say, you damn right it is, Sergeant.
And the air assault mentality is a real thing in the 101st.
Yeah, it actually, yeah, man. Yeah. You know, there's, you know, we you know, people talk about, you know, airborne, and dude, there's like, yeah, dude, that's cool.
Sure.
That's cool, man. And I have one of my best friends was an A2nd guy, man, and I love that guy to death, and I get it, man. Like, that's a mentality too. But yeah, the air assault mentality it's a different mentality as well, dude, within the 101st, man. Just like, you know, these Cav guys, you know, Cav guys have a mentality, you know, sappers have a mentality. Yeah. You know,
there's those pockets in the Army specifically.
Yeah.
You know, speaking from what I know and from what you know, just completely different types of human beings.
They are, man. They are. Just like, you know, I mean, but, you know, thing is, man, you got those people that are on pedestals like your line medics, you know, your line medics or your battalion chaplains and stuff like that. You know, those guys are, you know, those are the dudes that are on the pedestal.
Yeah. Hearts of steel.
Yeah. They're angels,
Nerves
man.
of steel.
They're angels.
Tell us about your deployment, 2003.
Yeah, man. So, got to Iraq, got to Camp Pennsylvania. We had, that was where we had the insider attack. Sergeant Akbar killed Captain Seifert. So that was my first taste of like, oh my gosh.
Fog of war kind of thing.
Dude, you're like, dude, this is war, bro. Like, you're actually here, you know? And then, you know, we had the Hornets and stuff flying over us, you know, doing their shock and awe and whatnot. And we laid out there on the berm, you know, at our posture, you know, ready for anything. We'd watch those guys fly over at night and just, you know, it's like, dude, these guys are on their way to mess somebody up. And that we were so motivated, man. I'm telling you, we were so motivated. It was like we had spent so many nights sucking, just sucking. Yeah. And it was time for us to perform.
Sure.
It was like being in the championship game, man. You know? And it was like, here we go. We were hungry. We were like rabid dogs, just ready to be let go. So yeah, man. The call came, you know, Eagle 6 gave the call, north of Baghdad. And, we moved out, man. We moved out and, you know, our first objective was a bridge. We had to take this bridge and secure it so that the, Army could continue its movement north. We did that.
You were near Mosul. Is that right?
We ended up at Mosul. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We had hit a bridge just south of on the Joff. We hit that, took care of that thing. Got relieved, moved north to join the rest of the brigade. They're on the Joff, and then we there for the battle on the Joff. Man, we were part of the element that took the northern part of the airfield, man, and we moved in there and whatnot, and that was a different experience.
You guys were at, if I'm remembering correctly, this was like the tip of the spear in Iraq.
Yeah. We were, you know, I was very fortunate to be a part of that, man. You know, very, very fortunate. You know,
what do you remember about your first taste of combat?
I don't remember. We were doing our jobs. We were doing our jobs, man. It wasn't until nothing set into me about what had just happened and what just like everything, nothing had set into me until we got to Baghdad, man. And, I remember we were on the street and, I started throwing up.
Just out of nowhere.
Start throwing up.
Wow.
And I'm like, why am I throwing up? And then I was like, you know, it just hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, dude, like, what did you just see? What did you just do? Like, what in the hell is happening in your life right now? You know? And then, like, it was like, dude, I got smacked right in the face. And it was like, wow. You're here, dude. You know, like I heard like this thing. There was like a voice that said, "You're here, dude. This is real life. This is happening." You know, and then, yeah, man, we you know, the guys and I, you know, we just continue to do our thing.
That's kind of what you want. You had mentioned it was just a job. I mean, that's what you want from your training.
Yeah,
you're just doing your job.
Yeah,
but
the training takes over.
Yeah. But so it just hit you like a brick wall once you got to Baghdad.
Yeah.
The reality of it.
Yeah.
Tell us about something I'm really fascinated to hear about, John, is the ambush on Saddam's 2 sons and their compound.
Yeah, man. So that's wild. So my platoon, we were rotated through. We had talk guard that time. We were a mounted element, you know, within air assault infantry battalion. You know, we were the mounted element. So we pulled talk guard, you know, because we had the guns that could reach out and touch you, you know. We'd been on mission all night and stuff like that or whatever. I was in our little barracks area that we had. It was I don't even know what the hell it was, honestly, man. We had a platoon of infantry guys in this area that is probably like maybe a quarter of the size of this room. It was wild. But yeah, we were in there. I was asleep, got woken up, you know. LT's telling us, you know, get your guns up, you know, get everything ready, you know, we're rolling out. And I was like, okay, well, what are we doing? He's like, you know, next thing I know, you know, all the NCOs like, get the guns up, you know, they're doing their NCO thing. And I'm like, they're serious. Oh my gosh, I got to move. So I run out, you know, I'm putting my clothes on as I'm moving and stuff like that. And I run out, look out. And there's all these dudes that don't look like me. They do not look like me. You know, 1, by size, 2, by outfits, 3, by facial hair, everything else. They do not look like, they don't have the same guns as I do. They don't have the same equipment I do. Like, I was like, who in the heck are these guys? You know, so instantly I'm starstruck. I'm like, are these SEALs? Are these Delta? Who are these guys? You know, whatever. I'm over there trying to get my Mark 19 together. You know, I'm like, oh my gosh. You know, I'm like, did you guys see that guy? And they're like, yeah, dude, he looks cool. I'm like, I know he does. You know, I mean, it was like, you know, like seeing Taylor Swift out in public, you know, for like a little girl, you know, like a teeny bopper. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know, this guy's busy Delta, you know.
This is like a far cry from when you first went to the recruiter to impress a girl. Now you're fawning over these soldiers.
Yeah, yeah. Now I'm falling over these guys who, you know, Navy SEALs and stuff, you know, and Delta Force. I'm like, oh man. So yeah, we get our guns up and stuff like that, you know, and whatnot. These aircraft come on station and stuff, you know. I'm like, okay, we're definitely going to do something very bad to some very bad people, because these people don't show up unless we're going to do something bad to bad people. It's like, all right, cool, man, right on, we're in. LT comes over there, gives us a quick battle brief. You know, hey, blocking position 1, blocking position 2, blah blah. Here's the house, blah blah. You know, I'm like, okay, all right, cool, man. And you know, he's like, you know, dog 1-2, you're BP2. You know, you're on the back of the house. You know, if you get any squirters and stuff like that, you got them. I'm like, yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
At this point, just to be clear, there's not names. There's not context to this. It's fighting positions. Yeah. Just
fighting positions, stuff like that, you know. Routes we're going to take in for the infill, routes we're going to take for the exfil, and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, cool. I got it. Like, look, anybody comes out of this house, you got it. I'm like, yes, I got this. I'm going to do this. Like, you don't have to worry about me, man. You know? And so we roll in and stuff like that, and we roll in and we get in our BP2, battle position 2, man. We're sitting there and stuff like that, and we're there probably about 5 minutes, and then we just hear thump, 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 thump. And I'm like, that's a 50 cal. That's my buddy Ken Sherline lighting him up. You know, I'm like, what's he shooting at? You know, and I'm like, I don't know, but I got to be ready in case someone runs out. So I'm sitting there, you know, and I'm on the street on the backside of the house, man, and there's people coming out and stuff like that, and we're like, you know, moving left and right, you know, and we're like, okay, you know, you don't civilians on the battlefield, man. You know, so we're like, you know, tell them get back in their houses.
Trying to identify friendlies.
Exactly, right. And so, you know, by that time, everybody's like, okay, I need to stay in my house because there's the guy right there with the really big gun, and I need to just stay in my house. Yeah. You know, and some people, you know, they ignored it and whatever, and we started just rushing the civilians away that we could, you know, whatever, and whatnot. Next thing you know, we get the call, you know, BP2, you know, this is Battle Force 6, pull your vehicle around to BP1. We're like, man, that's us, you know? So, we pull around to BP1 and, Battle Force 6, Colonel Carlson's standing there and we stop our gun truck and he looks up at me. He's like, can you get your Mark 19 rounds in that window? And I was like, yes, I can, you know? And he's like, okay, all right, don't mess it up. I'll kill you. And I was like, okay, right on. So we're leaving or whatever. I'm like, wait, did he just say that? You know, I'm like looking around and I'm like, look at all these badass, you know, look at all these guys, you know, these guys look awesome. So we were getting our battle position and stuff like that. And, they're like, you know, Sergeant Bell's like, you ready to fire? I was like, yes, I'm ready to fire, man. So I fire a few rounds, you know, test or whatever, you know, and I had to bring it down. There's actual footage of me firing. And you can hear
it's a news footage.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Wow.
And you can hear Sergeant Bros being like, bring it down, little man, you know, because that's what they call me, little man, or little Mac. Adjusted, you know, because at that time,
it's the grenade launcher, right?
Yeah, the Mark 19 grenade launcher, man. You know, and at that, we didn't use the T&E, man. We free gunned. We didn't need the T&E, man. So, I just moved my arms a little down, and I was like, ding, ding, ding. Next thing you know, man, I'm lobbing them right in this window. Yeah. You know, whatever, and you know, they're like, fire away, man. I'm like, okay, all right. So yeah, man, we you know, I got to fire tons. I mean, I went black on Mark 19 ammo, man. Wow. You know, it was wild. You know, it was, you know, we took fire back, and they fired at us, we fired at them and stuff like that. You know, we had gunships come on station and they were firing their rockets. We were shooting tow missiles and stuff like that, you know. And the whole time, all I knew was that, you know what, there's bad people that way. Sure. I have a gun and I need to shoot that way. Sure. You know, people who I follow, my leaders are telling me to like shoot that way. I shoot that way.
Your objective.
You know, no
questions asked.
Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah. You know, because I mean, it wasn't an illegal or unlawful order. So, you know, my only job as a soldier is to obey, you know, and whatnot, and execute, man. So yeah, it wasn't until after that we exfilled and we went back to the battalion talk, and we're all, you know, they're high-fiving each other, stuff like, dude, that was so sick, bro, that's so awesome. We're like, well, you know, and then they're like, you know, like, you guys know who we just did that with? And we're like, yeah, ODA, man. Yeah, that's who we just did that with. Like, no, you know who that was that we were shooting at? And I'm like, no, they're like, that was Saddam, that was Uday and Qusay Hussein. And I'm like, the Husseins? Like, Saddam's kids. And I was like, oh, you mean the dudes from the deck of cards, man? Right on, bro. And like, yeah, 2 and 3. And we're like, yes, you know, so we're going crazy. We're celebrating like no other, man. And then Colonel Carlson came over the net, made a net call, and I'm paraphrasing, man, but you know, he was like, you know, we are battle force. Within our ranks, we will do our own internal celebration. Outside of our ranks, we don't have to talk. All we have to do is walk. Sure, dude, that has stuck with me my entire life.
No bragging necessary.
No, I don't need to brag about it, man. Yeah. No, I got the T-shirt, bro. Mm. My life was so fortunate. My career in the Army was so fortunate that I was able to be a part of history, not only for my country, for the world, but for the 101st Airborne Division.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, like, yeah, dude, I got that T-shirt, man. You know, and the coolest thing about it is the dudes that I got that T-shirt with. Telling you, man, I'm telling you, I was a spectator to some of the greatest men in the entire world.
So we go from just an absolutely epic scenario like that, to a story I've heard about you getting a DVD player from your brother.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah.
So tell me just the dichotomy of war.
Yeah, dude. So you remember the DVD player is about half the size of this laptop, right? My brother sent it to me with the movie Old School. Right?
Will Ferrell.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And when that came in the mail, man, and I opened that box, I was like, "What is this?" And everybody's like, we had some techies, and they're like, "Oh, it's so cool." And Ken Sherline's like, "That's a DVD player, loser." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "It's a DVD player, dude. You ever seen one of those before?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got one, dude." He's like, "Not that ancient box you got in your room." And I was like, fair. So I'm like, "What movie is this?" And we're like, at that time we didn't even care, man. We just put it in there and we started watching it. Dude, this screen was probably maybe 12 inches, man.
How many people were around the screen?
Dude, you had an entire infantry platoon, man. You had an entire infantry platoon because it came on a down day, right? On a recovery day, so you had a whole entire infantry platoon watching this thing, dude. And it's our first time seeing Old School, dude. We were pissing ourselves. We were laughing so hard, dude. Like, this is awesome. This is so great. Even to last night, I even said it at B-Halls, and I was having one of their strawberry margaritas. Like, once it hits your lips, it's so good. We're still quoting this movie, man. It was so cool. But we watched that movie time and time again. It was the coolest thing, man.
You probably have it memorized, don't you?
You can put that thing on mute. I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. And there's a whole nother infantry. We've got a whole nother platoon of infantry guys that could probably do the same.
Nice.
So it was such a cool movie.
The reason I wanted to ask about that is I think our listeners would benefit from hearing a combat veteran speak on highs and lows of being deployed, and highs and lows of combat. And how do you find those moments of levity or those moments of calm when you're surrounded by chaos?
Good question.
Man, everybody found their own way, right? Everybody found their own way. I found my way through talking to guys about God. I found it through humor. Whether it was clean humor or dark humor, because there's a lot of dark humor in the Army, especially the infantry, because that's our way of trying to deal with what's happening. We have to make light of it because you can't dwell on it. You need
an outlet.
Yeah, man, you need an outlet.
Yeah.
I tell you, one of the best things that ever happened to me, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I do now, is when Thomas got his arm blown off. We went through it all, man, and whatnot. we get him, we're loading him on the bird, and his only concern is which hand is it? Which hand is it? We're like, "Thomas, it's your left hand, man." He's like, "How am I gonna?" We're like, "What?"
That's a warrior right there.
Is this for real, right? Yeah, man. Yeah. But you know what, man? That guy, Thomas Love, man, he was in Kosovo with the Marines. He got out for a little bit and then joined the Army because he's from Clarksville, Tennessee, and he wanted to stay there in Clarksville, Tennessee. So he joined the Army with orders to the 101st because he's already an infantry guy, right? So he's just join the Army, get your stuff, and here you are, dude. Right on, man. You already know discipline. You already know the rank structure and stuff like that,
Should
man.
Be easy.
Yeah. But when I got to Fort Campbell, man, I made a lot of friends instantly. Nick Cox, Steve Worf, Sergeant Powers, Sergeant Bell. Sergeant Henchy. Sergeant Henchy, dude, he's up there too. I'm telling you right now, man. Sergeant Henchy's up there. That's one of the greatest. It's one of the greatest men I've ever known in my entire life. Yeah, man, love was like an older brother to all of us. He's this older guy who knew things and just was wise and whatnot, and whether you were in the field and it sucked, or you were at the barracks and you just needed someone to like tell you something to get your head out or whatever, man, Thomas knew and he just did it. It was just like, okay, thanks, man.
I think in a lot of ways, we were talking about battle buddies earlier. Your battle buddies are your counselors.
Yeah.
They kind of have to be, especially in war.
Yeah. I'm telling you, man, talking about God earlier, that was one of my outlets. Darius Goss, man, this dude from Hartwell, Georgia. I mean, dude, a black guy from Georgia, a white kid from the country in Oklahoma. You know what, man? That's my dude. That's my dude. You know, when I started dating my wife, Goss and I had a house together. And she moved in, and I told her, I was like, hey, look, if he don't like you, you're gone. She's like, what? I'm like, I'm being dead serious. If he doesn't like you, you're gone. Like, you know, I mean, that, and you know, that's just the way it was, you know. And then those two grew into a relationship, man. It's beautiful. It is beautiful watching the way that those two interact with each other. And now the way that you know, Goss interacts with our daughter, you know.
It's a lifelong friendship.
Yeah, man.
A lot like what you said about Chris White. Very similar, sounds like.
Yeah. Just like my buddy Dan Johnson from No Slack, man. You know, our Russ Bollinger from Battle Force, man. I mean, Jesse Sage from No Slack, man. You know, you got these guys that just, you know, they can call me in 5 minutes. I will be on a plane if they need me to be on a plane, and I will get there. I'm very fortunate in life that I'm able to do that. You know, in many ways, I'm able to do that. I'm very fortunate.
So help people understand that bond. This just an unbelievably strong bond.
Yeah.
What forged it?
We saw each other at our worst. We picked each other up. You know, we picked each other up.
There's no hiding after that.
You can't hide anything from that, man. You can't hide anything from that. You know, I mean, all those guys have seen me cry in fear and terror, in disappointment and shame. And they've seen me scream and yell in victory. They've seen me be successful, and they've seen me fail. And in both situations, they were there to either champion me or pick me up.
Your highs and lows, no matter what.
Yeah.
I want to get a little bit into your recruiting days, John.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. I think it was 2010 to 2015 until you retired.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So when I was in Samara, my last employment, I came up on re-enlistment, man. And at that point in time, I had 8 years of service in. I had a young wife, and I was like, dude, I'm halfway there. I'm not getting out now, man. You know, and plus the benefits at that point in time in life that my wife was receiving were tremendous, man. She went to college for free. The Army paid for my wife to go to college, dude. You know, her dental, her medical, everything's paid for, man. So I was like, cool, let me do this. So I went to the re-enlistment guy. He's like, cool, I can do this, that, or whatever. I'm like, awesome, man. He's like, you gotta get Sergeant Major and sign off. So I went to Sergeant Major Fields, and I'm like, hey, here's what I'm doing. He's like, no, you're not. I'm like, what do you mean, man? He's like, no, Sergeant Mac, you're going to re-enlist for TRADOC. You're getting out of rotation. I was like, I'm doing what? He's like, look, dude, look. I know. There's no shame in it. You're going to take a knee. It's like, all right. Cool. Right on, man. Right on.
Did that give you a release? Did you know what he knew?
I knew it. I didn't accept it. Mm-hmm. I knew it, but I didn't accept it. So I re-enlisted, man. I got TRADOC at Fort Sill, went there, became a rappel master and stuff like that. Instructor, team development course, land navigation, stuff like that. Dude, I'm not even there a full year yet, and I come down on recruiting orders, and I'm like, well, I looked at the email, and the Army's fancy way of saying stuff is you've been DA selected for, and it gives off this list of stuff, and it starts with drill sergeant. I'm like, I've been seeing what these guys do, and I don't want to do that. No, send me to Afghanistan, bro. Like, no, I don't want to do that. You know, and I knew that No Slack was in Afghanistan, so I'm like, sweet, man, maybe if I get out of this, I can go back to No Slack and then get into Afghanistan. So I go to my first sergeant. I'm like, hey, first sergeant, I came down in orders. He's like, you want to go? I was like, no, I don't want to be a recruiter, dude. I'm like, what? why would I want to be a recruiter? Do you want to be here? No. I mean, what do you think? He's like, look, dude, go there and fail. If you go there and fail, they'll send you the first element moving out of country. And I was like, noted, you know. So I get to Fort Jackson, man. It was, dude, I partied like a college freshman. Okay,
Relaxing Jackson.
Yes. I hit four corners there in Columbus, dude, and that's where South Carolina is, dude. I partied every night. Like, I mean, I was partying. Okay, so that first test comes up, man. First week test comes up. I put my name on there. Abacadabra. Go turn that sucker in, and the instructor's like, "Sergeant, what are you doing?" I was like, I'm turning my test in, man.
Let me do the plan.
Yeah, right. I'm like, turn my test in, man. He's like, oh, what? He knew exactly what was going on. Yeah. And so I get done with the test. We go back. They, calls back like, you passed, blah blah blah. Like, you failed. Blah. I'm like, sweet. He said my name. I failed. And so about that time, the commandant walks in. And he's like, where's Sergeant McDaris at? I'm like,
oh man,
that's me.
Basic training flashbacks.
Yes. I was like, here. He's like, come with me, bro. Come with me, Sergeant. I'm like, okay. So I go over there. He's like, what are you doing, dude? He's like, what do you mean? He's like, look, dude, I've seen your ERB. I know what your ASVAB score is. I know what you've done, all these schools that you've done. I know you've graduated commandant's list, blah, 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 BNOC, PLDC, all this other stuff. I'm like, yeah, right on, man. It's like, yeah, so why did you fail? It's like, because I'm going on the first element going to Afghanistan. That's why I failed. He's like, you did what? I'm like, yeah. He's like, who told you that? And I was like, my company first sergeant. I was like, your company first sergeant lied to you. I was like, you what? It's like, yeah. I don't know who told him that, but no, that's wrong. And I was like, whoa. He's like, I'll see you back in a couple months, sergeant. I was like, oh no. So I called
recycled?
Bro. I called my wife. I'm like, I'm coming home. She's like, what'd you do? I was like, I failed on purpose. I thought I was going to Afghanistan. I'm just playing her. She's like, oh my gosh, dude. I drove home from South Carolina to Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Guess who my next door neighbor was? My next door neighbor was my battery command sergeant major. He's out mowing his front yard, right? And I pull in the driveway and he stops. He's looking at me. He's like, hey, Sergeant Major. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, he's like, oh, come here. I'm like, oh man. I go there, like, what happened? I was like, Sergeant Major, here's the story. I know what, I'm embarrassed. I don't really like this first sergeant, so I'm gonna tell you the truth. It's like, dude, he told me if I failed, man, I'm going to the next element movement in Afghanistan. He's like, oh, he did what? What? Nah, I'll tell you what, tomorrow morning, before first formation happens, you and him come to my office. I was like, man. Roger. Not a problem.
That's giving me cold sweats just listening.
Oh yeah, I was like, not me, man. I was like, not a problem. Whatever. So next morning I show up. By that time, first sergeant knew I had failed. I was on my way back because I called him and told him, I'm on my way back. First sergeant was like, all right, cool, man. I'll see you get here. I'm like, joke's on you. So yeah, man. Next morning we showed up at Sergeant Major's office and he's like, hey, first sergeant, what's going on, man? He's like, none. McDaris failed. And he's like, gigs up. I already know what you told him. He's like, he already told me. I'm like, yeah, I dropped that dime. First time I was looking at me like, I can't believe you said. He was giving me that look like, I can't believe you said that. I'm like, so you want me to take the fall for you telling me some bad advice? Because I don't know what your deal is or whatever,
What was your rank at this point? You staff sergeant?
I was staff sergeant, yeah, okay. Man. I was staff sergeant. So
he still has a responsibility to guide you.
Yes. And I believed in him because I'm telling all of my first sergeants in the 101st, man, all of them were solid dudes. All of them were like, Sergeant McDaris, Private McDaris, Specialist McDaris, do that. I'm like, I should do that. And I did what they said to do, and I made rank. And I was successful, So yeah, man, he told me to do that, so I did it, man. A couple months later, I went back to recruiting school, graduated, pretty high in my recruiting class or whatever, so much so that I was able to pick the battalion I wanted to go to.
Wow.
Yeah, man. So I was like, I want to go to the Kansas City recruiting battalion because I'm from Oklahoma, right? And I'm like, cool, I can get in this area, whatever. And so I picked the Kansas City recruiting battalion, called the sergeant major at the time, and he's like, what's up, man? I got your paperwork. I'm like, cool. It's like, where do you want to go? I was like, well, my wife is from the city of Louisville, Kentucky. I'm from the country in Oklahoma. Somewhere in kind of in the middle would be perfect for us, man. He's like, St. Peters, Missouri. I was like, cool, sounds good, man. So
had you ever been to St.
Yeah, did you know St. Peters?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd heard of St. Charles because I grew up playing soccer, and my soccer coach at the time, he was a graduate of Lindenwood University.
Gotcha.
So I'd been to Lindenwood for soccer camps and whatnot, but I didn't realize, I didn't put two and two together, whatever and whatnot. So yeah, man, we got here in September of 2010, man. We showed up. I showed up a couple days early, went to the recruiting center, wanted to introduce myself and whatnot, and Sergeant Shears standing there, and he's like, hey, man, you want to join the Army? Blah, blah. And I'm I'm sitting here with a high and tight and stuff. Like, I'm sitting here with I got like
it just never stops for recruiters.
Yeah, man. I got like an Army shirt on and stuff, like a old unit shirt on and stuff like that. And I'm like, nah, bro, I'm halfway to retirement, man. I'm your new recruiter. He's like, oh, okay, cool, right on, man. I'll meet you, introduce this to the station commander. I'm like, cool, man, right on. And I didn't understand that station commanders were NCOs and whatnot.
Sure.
So I was expecting to meet an officer. Well, he walks up, walks in the office. He's like, hey, Sergeant Bishop, hey, your new recruiter's here, whatever. And I'm like, said something to my wife or whatever, and I hear this guy goes like, who? It's like, Sergeant McDaris is the new recruiter. He's like, McDaris? No. He walked around the corner. I was like, Sergeant Bishop. He's like, McDaris, Mac, what's up, dude? Him and I were in the 101st together. We were Battle Force guys.
Wow.
Yeah, man. We knew each other.
World.
Yeah, dude. We knew each other from 2002 and 2003 back in Battle Force, man.
Nice.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's small world, man. The Army is huge, but the Army is small.
Yeah.
The Army is small. Because even when I was at Fort Sill, there were some guys there, man, that I knew from in country. Guys I had met in country, like switching through units and stuff like that. Dude, there's a guy that I met in country, man. We grew up literally streets from each other.
Wow.
Literally streets from each other. We're doing left seat, right seat rides. He gets in. I'm like, hey, dude, what's going on, man? It's like, hey, what's going on, man? I'm like, Sergeant McDaris. And I hadn't like looked around yet to see. And he's like, McDaris, dude. And I turn around. He's like, dude, what is up, bro? Are you kidding me right now, man? Nick Cox, man, the guy I'm 101st with. Him and I went to the same high school, man.
Wow.
He graduated the year before I did. Small world, right?
Wow.
Small world, man. But yeah, so yeah, I got here at St. Peters, man. I was doing a recruiting gig. It was cool, man. And I remember I met Sergeant Anthony White, man. He's from the local area here, man. This dude was I mean, he wasn't an infantry guy, he's a mechanic, man, but this dude, he was awesome. I mean, that's all. He had recruiting figured out. And my first enlistment, Thomas Hodge, man, 89 Delta. This guy was a genius, dude. I mean, this guy was a genius. Great soldier too, man. Really great representation of of St. Charles, man.
Sure.
But I was so nervous doing gearing up for his interview process and stuff like that. And Sergeant White was like, hey, look, dude, were you good at meeting chicks? I was like, dude, yeah, that's how I met my wife, because I was good at meeting chicks. Okay. She was with all her friends, and I approached that group of girls. Like I don't care. I could do this, So yeah, man, that was the single-handedly the best advice I got in recruiting. Because once I was told that and I realized that, I was like, okay, so for every 10 no's, someone's going to say yes. So I would walk the mall. But hey, man, what's going on, man? You talking about joining the Army? No, all right, cool, whatever, man. Hey, have fun in life, And I'd walk on the next person. Hey, man, what's up, dude? You want to join the Army? And it just became like I cared, but I didn't care. You know what I mean? It's like, whatever, dude.
You know you're going to get a yes eventually.
Exactly.
So the no's don't have any effect on it.
Exactly, man. Mental resiliency, right? That's what the Army talks about, right? Mental resiliency.
And you're going to get the right ones.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true too. I mean,
Yeah.
if they want to join.
If they want to do it, they're the right ones.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And of course,
Will is half the battle, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm telling you, man, there's some studs that joined the Army out of this area, man. You know, and I'm very grateful that I was able to be a part of that process for these guys, man. Because the Army was transformational for some of these guys, transformational for some of these guys, man. You know, I mean, it was for me. I mean, again, you know, this was not my career choice going into it. This was not. It just happened.
I want to make sure you had mentioned two full circle moments, Roberts and King. I want to be sure we talk about that before we end.
Yeah. So Roberts. So my wife's maiden name is Roberts. Roxanne Nicole Roberts, man. So I met this girl. We were in Louisville for some fights because we, you know, did the fight team for the 101st or whatever, you know. I'm group of pretty girls walking down the street on the other side, man. I didn't realize that they were leaving a haunted house and we were leaving the bars. You know, I just saw a pretty girl and I was like, you know, my buddy said something to him and I was like, when I heard one of them say sure, and I was like, ding, you know. So I made my way right over and I was like, ladies, you know, and yeah, man, Roxanne Nicole Roberts, man. So I ended up marrying a girl with the last name Roberts, who Roberts was the last name of my active duty Army recruiter who put me in, man. Like, dude, these things don't happen for no reason.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, these things don't happen for no reason. You know,
Tell us about King, Scott King.
Scott King, man. 13 Fox, man. Forward Observer. United States Army, man. So I'd come home from my second deployment. I'm walking through the PX there at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, man. And I'm, you know, lollygagging with my wife, you know, we're shooting it and stuff like that, you know, whatever. And this dude walks by and I was like, that dude looked familiar as hell, man. You know, whatever. And about that time I said to myself, he must have said to himself, because he turned around, we looked at each other. I was like, Scott King? He's like, John McDaris? I was like, bro, no. He's like, yeah. I was like, what are you doing here, man? He's like, oh, I'm with Balls of the Eagle, man. Well, I'm like, cool, man. Right? I was like, where are you at? I was like, I'm with 2nd Battalion, 327 Infantry. I was 3rd Battalion, man, whatever. And he's like, oh, right on, man. Yeah, I support strike. I was like, yeah, I'm 1st Brigade, man. Well, you know, like, you know, I mean, this is full circle moment, man. Just randomly.
It all comes back to you immediately. Too.
Randomly. Yeah. Dude, I'm telling you, I was at Mid Rivers Mall, and I hadn't seen my soccer coach since 97 was the last time I seen him. My wife and I are getting out. It's probably circa 2012. It's because it was before my brain surgery. Circa 2012, man. We get out of the car, and I'm talking to my wife, and the guy turns around and goes, Johnny Mac. I look up and I was like, Sean O'Connor. Immediately. I was like, you got to be kidding me, man. You know, and then, you know, we've been in touch ever since, man.
Something I wanted to mention, you've reminded me, John. I've heard you talk about the impact Staff Sergeant David Bellavia, Medal of Honor recipient, has had on you. And it's something I've noticed while we've been talking. Your story is beyond impressive. Something I really respect about our conversation is how much you lift up your battle buddies, and how much you lift up those who have impacted you and have made you a better person. You know, I've watched that. You know, it's a very common YouTube clip with Staff Sergeant Bellavia, and that's something that stands out in his speech. It's not about him; it's about his battle buddies.
Yeah.
It's about the people around him that made him better, and he's got absolutely unbelievable story of valor and bravery.
Yeah, he does.
You had mentioned brain surgery.
Yeah.
And this is a part of the conversation I really want to make sure we don't just fly over. You're diagnosed with PTSD officially.
Yeah.
Tell us about your journey.
So, man, I you know, I didn't realize what it was. You know, I just thought that, you know, I'd come back. Things were different now and whatnot. I experienced some stuff, and I gotta deal with this, man. I gotta process this. And so, my initial way of dealing with it and processing it was alcohol, you know. And I was pounding it, man. I was drinking a lot. I was literally a functioning alcoholic at that point, man. You know, and whatnot. And my wife and I were young in our relationship, dating and stuff like that, and whatnot. And she came to me and she's like, "Dude, if you don't stop, I gotta go." I was like, "I'm sorry, what?" You know, I kind of dig you. You know, she's like, "If you don't stop, man, I gotta go." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then, like, you know, I started slowing down, man. And then things started realizing, like, oh my gosh, dude, you really don't like yourself. You know, like, everything you're doing is a facade because you're supposed to be mentally resilient and whatnot, and you're a master of resilience guy trained by the Army and stuff like that, you know. But man, you're dealing with some stuff, bro. You know, so I started getting help there at Fort Campbell. You know, which my leadership at that time was very supportive of that kind of stuff. You know, and throughout my time there at Campbell, man, all my leadership was always supportive. You know, but you know, we also understood, you know, hey, soldier first, mission always, man. Soldier first, mission always. You know, that's just the way it was. I got to Fort Sill. That's when, like, I realized, like, oh, wow, man, I'm not the only guy here taking a knee. You know, there's a lot of other guys here that are coming from different units that are kind of in the same situation. They didn't come here willfully. They came here because they had a good senior NCO tell them, this is where you need to go at this moment in your life and in your career, you know. And so we kind of formed our own support group and stuff like that, and started getting stuff together or whatever. And that was, you know, that. And then I came out here recruiting where everything was very decentralized and whatnot. And
in terms of resources.
Yeah. I mean, they had people that come out here and be like, you know, they had people come out and show them, hey, how you doing? Sure. You good? Good? Okay, good, man. Right on.
Kind of Mr. Rogersing.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like
you're going to open up to them or something.
Yeah, dude, I don't know you, man.
Right.
I don't know you. Oh, what? But I was in the Army too. Dude, I don't care if you were in the Army too. Cool, man. There's some chocolate Tootsie Rolls up front for everybody gets, man. You know, grab one on your way out, bro. You know? And so, yeah, man. That's when we got back here, when we got stationed here in St. Peter's is when stuff started really coming to the surface again. And I was like, oh my gosh, dude, you know, but luckily, you know, I formed relationships here with people, you know, and whatnot, you know, but, my one constant through all of this, man, was my wife and my father, you know, cause I could call my dad up at 2:00 in the morning. He'd be like, what's up, dude? I'm like, Dad. You know, he'd be like, oh, okay, where are you? You know, and we'd talk, you know, and whatnot, you know, or my wife would, you know, my wife would just hug me, you know, and whatnot. And dude, those two constants, man, you know, and then you know, the constant reminder from everybody in my family and in my circle, you know, that, you know, I'm not alone, you know, I am a child of God and there's a plan for my life. And that I need to trust in him and believe in him, you know, and it's all going to be okay, man. And so, yeah, I went through years of that, and I got good, you know, and then the brain thing happened, man, and went through all the whirlwind of all that, right, and then I got retired from the Army. And that's when I really feel like I got kicked right in the junk, man. You know, I didn't have the guys in uniform, and I didn't realize how much of a support it was to wake up every day and go to the recruiting office and see another guy in uniform. You know, I lost a sense of identity. I lost a sense of who I am, you know, because I didn't realize that seeing that guy in uniform gave me a sense of purpose in my life. You know, that I was in fact contributing to something bigger than myself.
Not only that, I would expect, tell me if I'm wrong, John, but you were also recruiting. You were an active component in building the Army.
Yeah.
And then for that to be gone.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine how that felt.
Yeah. Yeah. And man, I tell you, dude, I had outstanding leadership here in Recruiting Command, man. Sergeant Major David O'Day, Sergeant Major Barnes, man, Colonel Summers. I mean, dude, these guys fought for me to stay in the Army. These guys fought for me to stay in the Army, man. I mean, they tried everything that they could have. They talked to everybody they could have and whatnot, you know, to keep me in the Army. Because they understood, you know, dude, the Army was me and I was the Army, you know.
It was a med board that finally ended your career.
Yeah, medical retirement, man.
Yeah.
You know, but
there's not much you can do at that point.
No.
Yeah.
No, man. No.
It's hard to prepare for the last day, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah.
You had mentioned your wife and the tremendous amount of support she's given you through the years. And you mentioned your father again. This will be the last question I have. I know I've been asking a lot of questions here, so my apologies. I want you to tell the audience the story about your dad and your rank. Yeah,
man. So you know, my dad retired from the Army as a first sergeant, you know, as an E8 and whatnot, you know, and when I decided that the Army was going to be my career, I said to myself at that point, "You're going to outrank your dad." You know,
much like earlier when you had talked about, you know, outdoing your dad, outdoing your brother.
Yeah. I was like, I'm going to outrank Dad. You know, and I would tell him that. You know, I'd go back home Oklahoma, and I'd be like, "Hey, what's going on, First Sergeant? Won't be that for long, okay? Don't worry about that. You'll call me Sergeant Major." You know, I mean, like that was like the fun, you know, and whatnot, you know. And Dad would always rouse me back, you know. But I could tell, you know, how proud he was to hear me say that. You know, how he was like, "Yeah, you know, like I said, Dad knew that I was going to be the one, man.
Sure.
Way before I even knew I was going to be the one, Dad knew I was going to be the one, you know." So yeah, Dad, you know, my father was a Vietnam veteran, multiple tours, you know, a couple Purple Hearts, Bronze Star with Valor, you know, and whatnot. But my dad was exposed to heavy doses of Agent Orange because my dad was a combat engineer. He would go in and cut the foliage down for LZs. He would blow PZs and stuff like that. You know, he would go into the tunnels. That's the kind of stuff Dad did in Vietnam, you know. And I'll tell you, my dad volunteered for that duty.
Wow.
You know, there was no go to jail or go to Vietnam or anything. No, my dad volunteered for that duty. I'm very proud of that.
You should be.
You know.
It's what McDaris men do.
It's what McDaris men do, yes. So when I was retiring, I was in the med board process. The list came out. The E8 list came out. I was a sergeant first class this time. List came out. I'm like, you know what? Let me just look at this thing, see if any of my buddies are on here, right? So I'm looking through. I'm like, oh man, look, there's Pena. You know, whatever. There's so and so. I'm like, oh, this is so cool, man. You know, whatever. And I'm like, dude, don't do it, man. Don't do it. It's like, all right, whatever. I'll see if you're on there. I look down or whatever, and there's Line McDaris, Jonathan W. And I'm like, so I call another recruiter, and then I start home. I call him over. I'm like, hey, dude, check this out, man. He's like, what? Oh, that's you. I was like, oh my god, what am I gonna do, man? What am I gonna do? You know, or whatever. He's like, did you call your dad? And I was like, I gotta call Dad. You know, because by this time Tony had come home with me several times. You know, Tony had come back to Oklahoma and met my entire family, you know, whatever. Him and my dad, man, they have a special relationship too. So yeah, Dad found out that I made the 8 list, man. You know, but I retired out of the Army as a sergeant first class, man. I couldn't get promoted because I was being med boarded, right?
Sure.
And whatever, because later on said, if you're pending med board, that, or whatever, you know. I'm like, oh man, that's me. whatever. Anyways, dad, by this time, dad's, a couple years later, dad's Agent Orange kicked in. Dad got, colon cancer, lung cancer, and whatnot. Dad fell, and he fell pretty hard, man, because of Agent Orange. So I go back home to see Dad, before he passes away, and I'm in the bedroom back there, and the hospice guy shows up, and my dad's like, "Hey, man," I'm like, "Hey, sir, how are you doing?" And he's like, "Hey, man, what's going on, bro?" And the hospice guy was a corpsman in the Navy, and so he knew Dad was an E8 in the Army, Vietnam guy, and so the respect was already given there, and he's like, "Hey, man, how's it going?" And my dad's like, "No, that's my youngest son. That's First Sergeant McDaris." He's like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" You just see him kind of like change his whole demeanor and stuff like that, And I had never realized up until that point that was the closure that I needed for my Army career. That was the closure that I needed for my Army career. I had spent all these years in the Army doing all these things and whatnot, building this career so that I could do these things and whatnot and provide for my family and provide for my country and whatnot, I never felt cheated because my career was ended short. I'm very fortunate for what happened to me, because I'm still alive, man. I'm still alive, so I'm very fortunate. That's not lost on me, man. There's some people are, woe is me. No, it's not this guy, man. I'm very happy with where I'm at in life, So yeah, man, I didn't realize that Dad saying that in that moment, that was the closure I needed for my Army career. I was like, okay, all right, John, you had a good career, man. You did a lot of great things. You were around even better people than you'll ever be, man.
And your dad's proud of you.
And your dad's proud of you.
Cool, and telling somebody else.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, John.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, man.
Yep.
Well, I'm all out of questions.
Man, it's been real.
It has.
It's been a real one. John, I mean, incredible story, man. Thank you for sharing. The transparency just is amazing, and like Ethan said, just the remembering of the guys you served with, the guys along your journey. I think that goes a long way when we speak about your character and who you are as an individual and who you brought along with you into your story tonight. Because this story is going to be out there, and those guys get to share in it, and I really appreciate that.
I think that shows. Personally, I think it shows how big a person really is. We've had great guests, and I've only been doing this for a little while here with Jason. I've gotten to listen to the Dog Tag, the previous iteration with Jason and Jim and Dom Masters. The people who impress me the most are the ones who can not only pay it forward, but also show respect where respect is supposed to be given.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I because of my injuries, I couldn't have kids. 2017, man, and this is how I'm gonna tell you. This is how I know God is real. On December 24th, 2017, we adopted our daughter, Campbell Nicole McDaris. You know where Campbell comes from, right? Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Yeah. We can't name we couldn't name her after every one of them, but every single one of them are remembered every single day. Yeah. And it's every time I get to say her name, Campbell, it just comes to me, man. It just comes to me every single one.
That's awesome.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, man, it's been an honor and a privilege to have you on our show, to be able to document your story. And Ethan, great job, man, with the questions.
Thanks for being here, John.
Yeah,
it's been an absolute pleasure.
We're going to go ahead and sign off of Operation Insight from the Mid-America Veterans Museum. Operation Insight is brought to you by the Mid-America Veterans Museum. The museum is a 501c3 nonprofit business. Do you like our podcast? With your support, we'll continue to bring you great programming. If you'd like to donate, go to mavm.org and click on Donate.